Hi, this is Reg Atwal, and welcome to another one of our shows on REG ATHWAL TV. For those of you who know the channel well, and our episodes today is an episode for next-gen entrepreneurs, where I get a chance to interview a phenomenal entrepreneur who set up a brilliant company from a very young age. We're going to hear from him, his story, the journey, the challenges, the mistakes, the successes, and everything that comes with it. So it's only fair that I give a formal introduction. Our next guest is Mr. Abhishek Shah. Abhishek is the CEO and co-founder of RSA Global, a digital freight forwarding and supply chain solutions provider with its HQ out of the United Arab Emirates. After his master's degree, he founded RSA Global Business along with his father, AJ Shah, in Dubai in 2009. And with his entrepreneurial leadership style, RSA Global has evolved into a renowned logistics solution company, employing over 600 people now and serving key industries across 4 regions with a global reach. He's a visionary individual. He's constantly pushing the organization to the next level, especially around technology and digitization, which I can't wait to ask him about. He's also co-founded 2 other companies by Tasker and FERAI. I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly, but I'm going to ask him about that. AI, I'm sure, stands for artificial intelligence. And he also belongs to the circle of Endeavor Entrepreneurs. And for those who don't know about that, we'll find out more. And also the Entrepreneurs Organization and a member of the UAE chapter. And in 2019, he made a big decision to start his 3-year OPM program, which is the Owner's President's Management Program, very successful program out of Harvard Business School, and we'll find out how he's getting on with his first year with them. So on that note, please welcome to the show, Abhishek Shah. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Reg. I appreciate the opportunity, and hello to all our viewers, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my story with you.
Thank you. We're going to get stuck in. We don't hang around with our episodes, Abhishek. You've got a very unique story, because most family businesses that I've worked with, my group company has worked with, all the interviews that we've done, typically we get the founder, the first generation founder, then there's the second generation coming into the family business, and so on, up to 4th, 5th generation. In your case, you're the co-founder, and I love the story when a father and son come together and start the business. It's a first generation company, but with 2 generations in it. So tell me, how did it all start? Where did it start from? How did this business come together?
Yeah, you're right. It is a fairly unique situation to be in. But actually, the foundations of this go all the way back to my childhood and the way I grew up. So I mean, I grew up in East Africa, and we moved to the UAE, Dubai in 2001. My father, he is a self-made man. He's an entrepreneur. They call them businessmen back in the day. We call them entrepreneurs now, but it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
And when we moved here, I was still in high school in 2001, and he looked for the opportunity, and Dubai was going through its massive growth phase at that point. So he was used his real estate background and built a couple of warehouses and did real estate play on that. And while I was going through university, I did a supply chain module and realized that there was a gap in emerging markets around the world where high quality of services was required. So we said that instead of just being a real estate play, why don't we offer the service? So I think the deal at that point was, as long as you're going to come back and you're going to manage that, we can start this together, because he says, I don't like dealing with too many people. I don't like dealing with noisy customers. So and I think that's how it sort of came back. And I mean, and still my father takes a lot of the credit for all of the
as you said, he's self-made. He's already got the entrepreneurial spirit, and that helps a lot. So I'm sorry to cut you, and I'm going to ask you, and I will do this in the interview. I'm going to get as much as I can for our viewers out of you. But prior to setting up the company, growing up, okay, in the family environment, what do you think were the influences? What do you think you picked up from your father, from your parents or grandparents or other people growing up that's helped you become a great entrepreneur?
No, absolutely. I think that it's critical, and you only realize these things later in life, right? Where small lessons or experiences do have an impact in how you think and see the future. So always, my father was, like I said, a businessman who was a serial entrepreneur in his right. He had multiple ventures. Some were successful, some were not. And I think he always gave me the opportunity of coming to certain meetings with him, traveling with him sometimes at a very young age also. And from the day that I got my driver's license, I was his driver, right? I was his driver, I was his shadow, I was his PA and his slash assistant. And I think these are invaluable things, just being that fly on the room, or learning the hard lessons. I mean, sometimes he didn't want me to go for a meeting, so he'd make me sit outside in the car for an hour and a half. I mean, there's a lesson in that itself, right?
What was that like for you? Thinking, I want to be in that meeting with him, and you have to be patient, and a lot of next gen members get frustrated with these type of things, and they quit. They quit too early, don't they? And don't want to be part of that process.
No, I think he's a man of few words in general. So he would just say, just stay in the car, and then you sort of build out, and after a period of time, you understand there's a reason behind it, and there's and later in life you really realize the value of it, because that taught you patience, it taught you how to keep your mind occupied. At that time, we didn't have too much on the mobile in terms of entertainment. You had a mobile but no entertainment, so it was like, how do you pass your time, right? So you start doing things individually. But I think if you're frustrated, for sure, you want to be where the action is, you want to be where the game is, you want to learn, but you grow and move on from it. I guess I think that's the takeaway from it.
I get it, and then obviously that supported you, education. Then 2009, RSA was born, and with RSA, I'm curious to know. Sometimes with a father and son, and with your father being a serial entrepreneur already, sometimes the senior generation are very stuck in their way. Of how business should be done, whether you should have a strategy or a business model or not. And some of the next gen have been to the best schools in the world. They learn all these things. They've got the theory, and they go, no, it's got to be done this way. Talk us through those, the earlier months of starting the business. Did you have any clashes or see things in a different way? What happened?
Yeah, no, so there's a very interesting story here, right? Because the planning of RSA started in 2007. So I still had 2 years left in my my university education. The whole point was we were going to open in 2009 in Al Maktoum International Airport, which is going to be the brand new airport in the UAE, which is going, UAE was growing dramatically at that time, and Dubai in particular, and we were going to be just in time for the opening, and boom, ready, business was all over. And then come 2009, as I graduated, of course, Dubai and the whole world had their whole challenge with the global financial crisis. So we were very lucky and unlucky. Lucky that we were able to finish the launch of our company, and which was the main asset was a 25,000 square meter facility and a global headquarters. But we were unlucky because the market just fell out from underneath us. So at that time we had an element, and again, it was one of those things where it was more of a discussion that what's the best thing for the business, what's the best thing there? Because none of us came from the background of supply chain. So it's probably the best opportunity now to go and learn on somebody else's dime while there's nothing happening here, and then come back. So at that point in time, I chose to go to Singapore with one of our partners, and I did an internship for 6 months, where I learned the game of logistics, and I came back at the end of 2009, and that's when we sort of really took off on the business from there on.
And why is that important, Abhishek? Because a lot of there's two schools of thought here with 120 plus family businesses that we've advised over the years, where one path is go and work outside for 3, 4, 5 years, go and get that experience, come back. The other path is no, join us immediately. Okay, the minute you've got that piece of paper that says degree on it or masters, get your backside over here, come into the business. We need an extra pair of hands. What are your thoughts being a next gen member where you had your internship for a short period and came back? What do you think is a good model? And there's no right or wrong here, but what are your opinions around getting that right?
I absolutely agree. I don't think there's a right or wrong on that, because circumstances will dictate what's the necessity of that individual family's needs, right? From our perspective, knowledge was scarce. I mean, how do you build that customer relationship? How do you build the service? How do you execute? And also there was no opportunity. I mean, otherwise it was all hands on deck. We were a team of, I think, 6 or 7 people when we started, and we had some people that knew the industry, and we thought we would learn together, and you learn as you grow, and you always look for that customer who believes in you and believes in entrepreneurial ability, and they'll sort of teach you. But my view on that is that you always need to know the other side to appreciate how well you have it, or how hard it is to create opportunity. Being an employee, I only had a very short stint in some other odd jobs that I did, but I understand now how it is for my team members and the challenges that they face of top-down communication and the likes, and that was a very, very large corporate, right? So you were just a number there. But how do you then have an impact? I mean, I think those are very important lessons that you learn, that you can put yourself on the other side of the table. So my belief is that it is very valuable to have the professional world experience when you come into a running business. But in our case, again, there was nothing running, so it was about creation, right? Creating is very different from running and growing.
Yeah, but it is where I think you're right. You know, you have to get the experience from somewhere. If you've got a large family business with multiple units, I know you've got like 6 subsidiaries now within RSA, and you think about your future generation in the family. Yeah, one could have a chance to work in multiple businesses to get the experience, but there's not a lot of family businesses that are that big. You know, most of the family businesses around the world will have the one business. And how many departments are you going to put your son and daughter in? So after the internship, coming back, again, how did you reach alignment with your father then regarding strategy, how to grow the business? Because I know you're hot on technology digitization, and you've got a very unique model with your logistics company, and hopefully you can share a few of those things.
So I think that again comes down to the type of character, right? I think I'm very, very fortunate, and I'm super appreciative of that I was allowed to experiment, even at startup stage where things were very tough, and we had no idea of certainty of what was going to go on. So the discussions between my father and myself were that, you know, what does the market need? And my view as a 22-year-old at that time was, hey, they want great technology with visibility, they want high quality assets and infrastructure, and they just want a great service, right? So we were very, very focused on those 3 things for the first 18 months after I came back, and that's how we sort of put motions into play. And we're a B2B business, and sales cycles are long, so seeing results take time. From that perspective, but you know, thankfully by the end of 2010 we were well on our way, and then you know, we sort of rode the market thereafter. But those 3 strategies which were, you know, it wasn't a board meeting, it was a couple of us just sitting in a hot warehouse to say that what do we need, right? Let's go speak to somebody, and that's how you sort of create that. Yeah.
So what were the challenges? So you know, to go from nothing to what is now a, you know, significant 8-figure dollar high-end turnover business, what's been the biggest challenges on that journey where, you know, things could have gone the wrong way, you know, you had to pick yourself up, you learned valuable lessons, you know, what are some of those things over the last 10 years?
So I mean, there's a whole book on that one for sure. But I think the most key ones were, you know, it's always important to have strategy, but sometimes when you're a very small business, which we were when we started, opportunity defines your strategy to a certain degree, right? I mean, what opportunities come your way will almost decide which way the company goes in the future. So we had built a core competency of managing a particular service. And then we basically took that core competency and we applied it across different industries right across, whether it be petrochemicals, whether it be frozen foods, whether it be now e-commerce. But then we realized that to be a truly effective logistics organization and supply chain partner to our customers, you have to be global, right? Because people don't move cargo within one country only, they move it across borders. And that's where the complication is. So we wanted to become a multinational provider to our customers and a multi-geography strategic partner to our customers. So we ventured into East Africa, where we had our roots. 2018, we did an acquisition in India, which was also a very interesting experience. Definitely my first M&A, which taught me a lot of things, and I can tell you how not to do certain things there as well. And then last year
one or two biggest lessons with the M&A. If you're doing it all over again, or someone else watching this is about to go through an M&A for the first time, what would be your top 2 or 3 tips?
Yeah, my top 2 or 3 tips on that, actually based on a lot of reflection and internal post-mortem on that. One was, you know, you never want to at all cheap out on the due diligence. Even though the ticket size might be small, don't cheap out on it at all. I mean, try and get the most reputed guys, the strongest guys in complicated markets, right? Such as India. So you need to get the best you possibly can. And we didn't go very cheap on it, but we just didn't go for the best we possibly could. And secondly, I think it's very difficult when you're a small company and trying to do an acquisition, even though it's very important, because if, let's say, the EBITDA is just, for argument's sake, $100,000, That's a very small finite amount of money that can swing very fast into negative because the value is very small. So probably go for a larger size, a ticket size if you can, from that perspective. And be very, very aligned on strategy with the acquiree or the management team that you're bringing in from day one.
Was it a good move? I mean, does it become an accelerator for a business is to think about acquisition? Because a lot of family businesses don't think acquisition, especially in their first 10 years. Yes, maybe in 20, 30, 40 years time when they get to that stage, but a lot of them won't think that way the first 10 years.
For us, it wasn't a element that, hey, here's now a mandate to go out and acquire. It was, we want to go into this market, and we did enough homework in that market and realized that when we looked at the customer, we asked our customers, what's the challenge you're facing? They said, look, we have a variety of partners, but they're stuck in, they reached the limit in terms of people, process, and capital and technology, what they need to grow, and you can help them with that. So it was all driven around the customer centricity that we operate by, that they see that this will add value to them. And those customers are customers we already served in our Middle East market. So it became exactly what I talked about, a multi-geography supplier, as a strategic supplier to our customers. So that's what really drove it. And that's how an acquisition came about from that discussion. And in hindsight now, whatever mistakes were made on how we did the acquisition is an absolute bang on, fantastic strategic move, because in terms of what we're able to do and accelerate, and India is the next 15 years of a ripe market, and logistics and supply chain is one of the biggest spends of every product company in that market, right? So it's a pain point. So we're very excited about what the next 10 years brings with logistics and supply chain in that market.
The journey was global, yeah? You're already thinking global. I know you've got 25 sites and locations now within the group. So that was firmly there, you know, from early on to say, right, we are definitely going global. We're going to set up our site in India. We're going to do an acquisition. We're in UAE. We're in Kenya. We're in Hong Kong, in China. Have I missed any places? Probably a few others.
That's it. That's it for now.
And then you've got multiple locations and sites within those countries. So where are you at now with the business? Is it you're in multiple industries, multiple solutions? Could you talk us through the digital part? I'm curious to know, right, for next gen members out there listening, going, yeah, I've got a great tech idea, which I think could be linked to the legacy business. You know, what tips would you give them how to go about doing that? Because that's how you've transformed your business.
Absolutely. So in 2018, we realized that after we did the India acquisition, that hey, this is good and takes a long time. But the question was that if I need to do this in another 5 countries, would it take me another 10 years to do that? Because that's still too slow. The world is moving way faster. So how else can I use technology or other tools to meet that end objective of being that strategic supplier to my customers across different geographies? And the answer was simply technology, right? So there, by fortune or by seeking out, managed to meet a few partners in different markets that is their core focus is about allowing companies like myself become as large as the very large global companies, but using digital tools, right? So it was using the ambition of the organization and using technology that's available today and the convergence of different types of technology, whether it be AI, whether it be just network capability, whether the cloud-based systems that exist today. Because of that, today you can do these things which didn't exist when, let's say, a DHL was founded 100 years ago, but they have taken generations to get into every country in the world, for example, right?
Abhishek, was the core driver with your digital strategy, because I remember reading up on one of your articles or watching a video where you were talking about speed, and connectivity with your customers. That was one of the drivers. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, because the customer drives everything, right? All of us work for a customer, and if we're solving their problem, because I mean, our core purpose as RSA is solving challenges for a better tomorrow. That's why this organization exists. And if we're not doing that for our customers, we have no value overall. So what additional ways, additional problems, and as their supply chains and their businesses evolve, and especially now in a post-COVID world, everyone's relooking at their supply chain design, right? So how are we going to adapt to that? We are a combination of an offline-online organization that do have heavy assets as well, but do have now this digital footprint and assets that allow us now to serve our customers very effectively across the globe.
Love that. So what's the one unique thing RSA Global does with its subsidiaries that your competition don't do? What is that one thing that stands out that
that's
allows you
always
to
a fun
grow
question.
this business?
That's always a fun question. For me, it's two things, not only one. So one is we have used the power of collaboration and partnership from really early on in the company to create unique products and services that allow us to basically get access to customers and grow for our customers really quickly. So this can be joint ventures, this can be service partnerships, but we've done a lot of those, and we really like that because it allows us to expand very, very quickly. And secondly is that we're very experimental driven. We're happy to take the risk and try new technologies, merge them together. And some of them don't work. So projects, I mean, everything from, we were the first company in the UAE to start industrial solar in warehouses, right? Just when the technology was affordable to come into market. Or now we're working with robotic process automation to offer new revenue streams and reducing costs for our customers. All that takes investment. It takes a team that is built around you that are excited to do these things and are empowered to make that change. And adopting these new technologies is really what makes us different, I think, overall. So I would say those two elements make us unique from my perspective.
I like it. So give us a few tips on building teams, leadership, management, getting that whole right, because you can't build this just as a father and son business in all these countries. You've got to build a team. So what have you learned there when it comes to getting that piece right?
Yeah, and my own leadership journey has been very exciting, actually, because it's tough when you are extremely young and you're going into a grandfather industry, where supply chain until the last sort of years has been pretty traditionally run. You have truckers, you have a legacy thought process of how documentation should work. Everything is paper driven. And when you come in as a 22-year-old, 23-year-olds, I mean, the people you've employed have been working in this business for 30 years, and they tell you that, don't teach me how to do it. And I think giving comfort that it's now time to try something new, it's now the time to change because our customers want something new, allowed me to, one, gain respect of my team members, right? And secondly, I was there doing the hard yards every single day, picking product in the warehouse, loading the trucks, doing the 60 days in a row to make sure the inventory was right when we launched our new technology system because we just couldn't get it right for the first 10 days, and things like that. And that just shows you've got the passion and you've got the energy. You're not coming in entitled as well. I think there comes in the difference of being a founder because you have everything on the line rather than coming in as another generation, as I feel is a big difference overall. And then as you scale, as you scale, attracting talent is tough, right? Because you are a known brand. You can't pay the best compensation when you're competing against the biggest boys in the market. So what was my strategy in that was, hey, I definitely cannot pay you what you want, but I'll give you the scope that you would not have seen in a large organization. So you now are the king of this part of this process or the entire piece. And second, titles were cheap for me, right? So I gave them what they wanted to see because some people are motivated by that. And as you grow and realize that, okay, then you need more structure in an organization. But these are the ways that you could attract talent early on. And now when we become, let's say we've got a corporate HQ, we've got a shared service center that basically gives services out to the business. Now I would say we are a talent magnet. We have great people wanting to come to work for us. We have a fantastic culture that we built through our organization.
I ask you about that culture because that's very, going on the website, you're value driven. Yeah, there's core values. Who came up with that? Was that your initiative, or how did you end up developing those core values? Because I'm passionate about that. I think every family needs to have a set of values and then use some of those on the business side to make sure that there's alignment, attract people based on those values. I know you're doing that, but how did that come about? Setting that up for your company.
This comes from a lot of learning and peer-to-peer learning, right? So this I have to commend my entrepreneurial colleagues that I've met throughout my journey and being exposed to some of those teaching programs. So now when I would start a company from scratch, it would be the first thing I would do: core purpose, core values, right? Here it came as an outcome of a process that probably about 4 years in, I sat the team down that we had at that point and said, guys, we need to figure this out. I mean, we want people to know that within this box, whatever you do, we have no problem. You're fully entitled and empowered. But outside that, it should be a guiding principle that anytime you have a dilemma, you look at our core values and you ask the questions, and it would allow you to choose whether you are right or wrong. And we took that a step further in our hiring process. So today in our hiring process, we learned this from Google, where you have a culture round interview where we get random A players of culture from around our organization at all different levels. And they have nothing to do with the technical competency of the new candidate. And they all have a set of behaviors that each value of ours desires in our organization. And they ask questions and they have a debate at the end and they all say yes or no. And if even one person says no, that person isn't recruited by us, even though they passed every other technical element through the organization.
Yeah, that's good. On that note about if you were doing it all over again, you know, when it comes to values and purpose, what other tips can you give next gen members who are in their 20s right now? Yes, they have a family business already that they can be part of, but we know a lot of next gen members in today's world have this itchy feeling underneath the collar where they've got to prove something. They want to go and develop a startup as well. So what tips can you give them? You know, what are 4 or 5 key things that they should look at, consider if they're going to go build a great startup?
So I think today we live in a time where we almost have an abundance of everything, right? There's enough capital out in the world so that money is not the issue. Even if you're in a family business, you may have it internally, but it's even more valuable when you're able to raise money from a third party because it validates that this is not only something that me, because I've got the capabilities and resources that I can fund this through. So one, make sure that you try the opportunity of raising third-party capital because it validates a lot more about your value proposition that you're building. Second, find co-founders, right? I think co-founders are very valuable, especially when you're coming from a family business background, because there you have people that are equals, that are your partners, and each one comes with a different strength and skill set that will add a tremendous amount of value to the business or the venture. And lastly, be very clear what that venture is being built for. Is it being built to last, or is it being built to basically be acquired? And I think that makes a very large difference to how you treat the company. And I am almost treated as an old school mindset from my friends because I always believe in profit, right? But all of my startup world guys, until very recently, were like, no, it's about valuation, it's about raising the next round. And all my startups today and where I'm involved in, it's about make sure we have a bottom line and sustainability is there because you have no idea whether you'll be able to raise the next round. I think many people have been burnt post WeWork and post COVID. I think that's coming back to a reality that road to profitability at the bare minimum is a requirement. So these would be my 3 really key.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I like that. There's some good tips there. So you've obviously built some other startups. So talk us through what is ByTasker? Is that pronounced correctly? And FER.ai.
Yeah, so they're called ByTasker and Pharaoh.ai. So the journey on those was I'm very clear that I understand one realm really well, and I'm a supply chain expert, right? So the other tip that I could give when starting is that what is the industry that you fully understand, right? And if you're going to be a co-founder, it's different from being an investor. An investor, you could invest in a variety of different things to diversify your portfolio. But this, I was going to something because I knew it would add value not only to my own business of RSA, but also create independent third-party value. So I only played in the game of supply chain, right? And I was fortunate to find other co-founders. Some of them are based in England, some of them are based in the Middle East, that had in the process of building some great tech. So ByTasker is exactly what I talked about earlier. So how can you create a single operating system that allows you to be as big as any other company in the freight forwarding world, but completely digitally? And today with APIs and connectivity and visibility, how can you do all the booking all online, right? And make sure that you're communicating with shipping lines, airlines, and your road haulage partners, all from one interoperable platform. And then Pharaoh is actually very interesting because that's banking on the future of voice being as the way that we will interact with machines. So from keyboard and mouse to voice being the next element. So that aims to reduce 100% of human involvement in freight and logistics when it comes to coordination. So that's about intelligent AI, understanding that, you know, how do you book a product, how do you book a truck, how do you book a shipment, what's the status of it, and only manage it by exception, and the rest is just being run in the background.
Yeah, that's good. Well done, and I'm sure you're going to add some more to the portfolio. Keep doing what you're doing. I like the idea of having the core business, sticking to the core, then looking at that ecosystem and adding some other elements to it with other startups and other co-founders. I think that's great. One of the big things I'm really passionate about, Abhishek, and I can see you are as well, is education. That journey of ongoing development. And within our group company, RTS Global Partners, we've got a separate arm called Family Business Academy. We're hot on education, online programs. And you talked about the next gen and peer-to-peer group learning. And I'm excited that in the near future, we're also looking to create a next gen exchange type program where people can learn from each other, travel to each other's family businesses, and hopefully even help the next gen find their co-founders, you know, for a great idea. But I know you've been heavily involved with Endeavor Entrepreneurs Organization. And for people who've never heard of these organizations, could you share a bit about, you know, what you've learned from them and why peer-to-peer group learning and forum type formats are important?
Absolutely. So actually, my journey on this is truly unique because after we started the business and we started having success in 2012 to 15, the UAE grew very rapidly, and so did our business, and we did really well. But 2015, I'd hit a plateau. I didn't know what the business should do next. I had my team saying, "Hey, where do we go? What are we doing? What's the next year's strategy?" And honestly, I was lost. I had no real thought process of how to basically do that. And that's when I started seeking out peer-to-peer help from other entrepreneurs. Say, "Hey, when you reach this limit, what's your process? What do you do?" And I did three things at that time. One, I got a business coach, right, to help me funnel my thoughts. And that was a business coach that helped our business and just fundamentally changed the way we did our processes, etc. And second, I joined a couple of these organizations. So at that time, I joined the Entrepreneurs Organization, which is made up of different industry agnostic entrepreneurs. And the Entrepreneurs Organization gives you a whole bunch of learning events from personal, family, business perspective. And they really do foster that ability to learn from your peers. And the second one was Endeavor. So Endeavor is basically trying to help companies grow by giving them access to capital, markets, and talent. And you know, they're trying to sprinkle the magic of Silicon Valley all across the world. So I was lucky to get into both of those organizations in 2015, and I saw tremendous value of just asking an experience share from somebody else. That, hey, when you were in this position or something similar, how did you deal with it? And just understanding the thought process of what people did is exceptionally valuable when you want to go home and reflect on your own, of what your own personal challenges may be.
You know, again, whoever's listening to this, please take this on board from Abhishek. It's really important. I've been a resource speaker for EO for 16 years and other organizations like YPO. Done a few OPM retreats as well for some of the classes in the past. And everything Abhishek is doing is spot on. You've got to keep learning. You've got to hang around with the right people and learn from each other who are going on a similar journey. We've come across far too many next-gen members out there who finish their degree, finish their masters, and never pick up another book again. And it's very sad to see. So please take on board what he's saying and maybe look at some of these organizations. We'll make sure in the description area you can also find out more about these things. Abhishek, I wanted to ask you, you know, you then decided to go and do your OPM or start your OPM with Harvard Business School. Why did that come up? Why did you decide to do that?
So, you know, funny, just to go back to the previous point, and that leads up to the OPM, was I was not the most engaged student through high school, university, right? But after I started the business and had real life issues, then the hunger to learn came in very fast. I've got a problem, I need a solution, now how do I find it? So it's either peer-to-peer learning or there's a theoretical element. So actually, through Endeavor, in 2016 and 17 and 18, they offered week-long courses at Harvard Business School that were for high-growth entrepreneurs, at Stanford Business School, and at NCI. And I basically did all of those for a week, and to actually learn which kind of system I thought best suited me and was most conducive for me to learn and move forward. So after doing that experimentation for 3 years, so 1 week a year, I would take out and go do that. I then went on to choose that, okay, Harvard is where I want to go because I liked the case study method, I liked the campus, I liked the way that they were teaching it. And I heard of a lot of people going to OPM because of the relationships that you build there, and you're growing together over a 3-year journey was very important. And that's how I chose OPM as what I thought was the right solution for me. And I only started my Unit 1 last year, and unfortunately this year it's been moved to online, and I've decided to defer that until I can go back on campus.
So you're still a young man, 33 years of age, married, congratulations, 3 kids, 3-year-old, 1.5 years, and another one just a few weeks ago.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Congratulations, beautiful. You know, family is expanding. So as you think about the future now, and you look at your children, and when it comes to family businesses, you're still like a first generation family business with your father, but you are 2 generations. But to get to 3rd generation, very few get there. And
Absolutely.
to get to 4th generation family business, only 3% get there. So looking into the future now, what do you think is important with your children? What are some of the principles, values, things in your mind that you think, this is what I've got to do with my children to get this right for the future?
So look, all my children are girls. I have 3 daughters, very, very blessed. So my wife and I, she's a qualified Montessori school teacher. So I think, we are very blessed in our immediate surroundings of the way that we have been and plan to, of course, because we're just starting that journey to bring up our kids. But I think personally for me, when I think about the next generation, and I understand the rapid nature by which the world is changing, that I'm pretty sure that by the time my kids are of working age, I don't think my business will be the same or will be there, right? It may be under the same name, but it might be totally different. So from my perspective, the way I build the future is that it's about just giving people 4 or 5 basic principles, right, that I want them to have as my kids. One, you've got to be still very, very good at mental maths. You've got to be able to sell. You've got to have a great ability to be an orator, right? And 3, you've got to be able to gather the world's information and put it together to solve the world's biggest problems. Because now we have access to everything, right? We have an abundance of information, abundance of capital, abundance of opportunity. But it's now how do you converge things together to really solve the biggest challenges. And that's what I hope that I can impart on my children going forward. And finally, what's now becoming a deep passion for me is this element of equality and inclusion all the way through. Not only as my family, we've always been involved because my younger sister is Down syndrome, and we want her to be independent and fully given every opportunity that is available to her. But even now with 3 daughters, and once I've started digging, you just understand that the world isn't equal, right? And how do I set up and make and take whatever I can with my influence to build the world into a much more equal opportunity environment?
I love them. What's your thoughts on wealth and money? Because, yeah, you're right. In 10, 15, 20 years' time, you've either got businesses that are, they're continuing to grow and you're looking for a succession plan and the next gen get involved, or you've done an exit and you're sitting on a pile of cash. You've now set up a family office with your father. And, your girls will grow up in a very, very different world and environment. And the reason I ask that is because around the world right now, especially around Africa, Middle East, and South Asia region, there's trillions and trillions of dollars that is about to go into the 3rd generation's hands in the next 10 years. And that's when most people blow it. Yeah. So have you thought about that? And with your father about, you already have a significant portfolio of businesses, it's continuing to grow, that wealth will increase by the time your daughters are in their 20s. So how do you get that right?
Yeah, I think that's a big question, something I probably haven't spent enough time on yet. But I think my general principle on that is, because even though I grew up in I would say a privileged life, right, from when you compare to the rest of the world. But it was, again, the way that we were brought up. I mean, materialistic elements were, we were shielded from there. We were built in with certain values of, hard work will result in you having what you want. And we really had to earn it, right, from that perspective. So I think it's built in that same environment overall. And I think it's difficult in today's time because depending on who the social circles are, the boundaries get warped of what is entitlement and need as a difference overall. And I think it's a constant battle, especially when you're living in a place like Dubai, where opulence is ever present. We need to be very wary of that. I think it comes down to making sure that it doesn't matter what kind of resources you have, that how can you basically give impact with that, right? Impact you define as an individual yourself what you want impact to be. Do you want to grow that wealth 5x, or do you want to have impact in the society around you? That's completely an individual's output of what they want to get done. And I will leave that choice to my daughters on how they want to live their life and how they want to have an impact in the world. I think it's very difficult, and I'm very fortunate that my parents had put zero pressure on me of creating a family business or joining the family business overall. I actually wanted to become a zoologist when I was in school, but then pursuing that, I just have a deep love for animals. But it was just circumstances that you build from that I hope to be able to impart on my daughters.
I appreciate that, and I wasn't expecting for you to have all the answers to these questions. Being a young man still, I think the point here is for people who are listening. We get it all the time. Family businesses where the children are in their mid-20s, late 20s, or even early 30s, and then they're thinking about structures. What's the right way of doing this? What's the policies? What type of constitution to have? And the reason I'm asking Abhishek these questions is because it's best to do it when the kids are young. It's best to know your philosophy, know those values, know how you want to navigate and guide this and support them. And that's why I'm asking you these questions, Abhishek. And there's many others I can give you will not have the answers to right now. But as long as you've got the questions, at least you can start that journey to get it absolutely right for the future for your girls.
No, so, 100%.
Yeah, so on that note, let's pretend it's the 31st December, 2030. 10 years and a bit, 10 years and 4 months or so. Yeah. And we're sitting down, shaking your hand, I'm congratulating you, saying, well done. Since we did that interview back in 2020, wow, look at what's happened. What would you be telling me? December 31st, 2030, looking back, what are the things that have happened since we last did this?
Yeah, that's one of those things where you're tapping into a very exciting place in my mind. I have many branches of where this could go, right? So I think one of the most exciting things that I'm hoping that my family and I can have tremendous impact on going forward is two areas. I told you about the equality piece, right? Of generally building a place that was way more accepting and equal when it comes to opportunities. I'm really hoping that could become my personal legacy going forward, non-business related. And second, from a business perspective, given that this supply chain background that I have, I do see that RSA will still be around then. We should be at the minimum 3 to 4 times as impactful to our customers as we are today in terms of size, presence, and capability to deliver. And the third element of that, which is related to supply chain, would be a portfolio of supply chain technology organizations that all put together are radically transforming the way global trade moves. And I think that would be the 3 areas that I would be most proud of, to say that we've had the opportunity to impact global trade, impact equality in the way that everybody is treated. And hopefully at that time is also be very comfortable that my children's futures are secure, and as well as my parents in their retirement from a financial perspective.
Yeah, I'm going to hold you to all those things, because now I've got this as proof, which I'll share with you and show your daughters as well. When they're hitting their teens, which will be good. And that's the power of doing these interviews as well. That's why I love it, and I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me today. And for those of you still watching, hit the like button, helps with the algorithm to reach more people. Hit the subscribe button to the channel if you're on YouTube, or like on LinkedIn. And leave your comments. And if you want to find out more about RSA Global and the group of companies and connect with Abhishek, we'll make sure all his details are also in the description area. And if you're looking for world-class supply chain solutions, check out the website, go to rsa.global and find out what the company's doing. So on that note, Abhishek, thank you very much for your time. Look forward to doing this again in the near future, and keep doing what you're doing. You're an inspiration to many next-gen entrepreneurs.
Reg, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for exposing me to your audience. And I really hope that everybody got at least 2 or 3 key takeaways that they could try and at least think about. And I'd love to have an offline chat with anybody who's interested. Thank you so much again, Reg.
Abhishek, thank you.